welcome to episode number 4 of Upright Dogs. I'm your host, Cody.
And I'm your co-host, Brandon.
Today we got a pretty interesting little show lined up for you. We're still not able to do any field work at the moment, but we just wanted to give you a heads up that in about 2 to 3 weeks we do have a little woods field work project to do. But with that in mind, let me go ahead and do some shout outs. I'd like to give a special thanks to DBZ Veterans, Shockwave 460, D8800187, and Ron R. Thank you for your subscriptions. On that note, I wanted to go ahead and, tell you if I missed anybody that subscribed, do me a favor and go ahead and shoot us an email because apparently YouTube is failing to get me the subscriptions, all of them. So if I missed your name, go ahead and shoot us an email and make sure I get your shout out on the next episode. And I apologize if I did miss you. I wanted to talk a little bit before we get going here about respecting wildlife. This is the herpetologist part of me coming out. I've been studying herpetology ever since the year 2000. Learning, learning a lot of stuff about animals like reptiles. Body language, knowing when's a good time to mess with them, when's a not good time to mess with them. I handle venomous snakes, coral snakes, both eastern and western, diamondback rattlesnakes, etc. Um, and I'm not going to digress too far here off subject, but I'm just going to compare, it to the dogman topic, because it's really no different. If you're a hunter or fisherman or anything like that, you were raised in the woods, then you were probably taught to respect, respect wildlife. Don't take advantage of it. Animals play a vital role in a healthy ecological system. Um, and they deserve our respect. I certainly wouldn't, if I ever did encounter a dog, man, I certainly would not do anything to provoke it. Admire it. I would admire it. Try to get some footage of it. Definitely not, throw things at it or try to shoot it. If you have to defend yourself, that's one thing, but just trying to kill one, that's another. You probably won't anyway. We're in the year 2018, and there's not any good hard pictures of these things, of these dog men. We still don't know much about them at all. I, I, I see and hear a lot of interesting theories, but then I see and hear a lot of silly stuff. When it comes to these things, I do have my own theory about it. About these animals, but it revolves around our Creator. The Eternal, Yahweh, if you will, and that's my theory. They're top, very tip top of the food chain. Man's not. Man really wouldn't be anything now without a gun. But these animals, I do believe, are at the very tip top of the food chain. I think they're the predator's predator, if you will. But anyway, I don't want to, once again, I don't want to digress too far off in that direction. But, you know, remember, if you go hiking or you go camping, especially in the denser woods, away from civilization, try to do the buddy system. If you don't encounter a dog man when you do it, it still stands. You have bears, mountain lions, things of that nature, and not to mention rough terrain. So it's always good to do a buddy. Take a buddy, somebody that can get help should you ever need it. And respect the woods, respect the wildlife. I mean, we're talking as small as if you turn over a log because you thought you saw a snake crawl under it. Turn it back over. You know, 9 times out of 10, that's home to some kind of animal. So I just wanted to, bring that respect back, to the topic. Let's whatever we do out there, let's don't forget how beautiful this land is. How beautiful animals are. The most beautiful species of animals are the one in their natural environment. I coined that phrase in back, in my herp days. So, without further ado, let me go ahead and shoot my email out. It's dogsupright. That's DOGSUPRIGHT at gmail.com. Once again, shoot me that email if I failed to mention your subscription, and I will get that to you as soon as possible. Let me touch a little bit more about what we've got coming in the future. I've got a couple of guys that I'm trying to intermingle with now to possibly get on the show. Uh, some that are little, have a little more knowledge about the dog man, and then, some that has had some encounters. That's some stuff we've got coming up. Not to mention, like I said, there's a here in Texas. I'll leave the exact location blank, but here in Texas, we've got an area to go do some investigation research for you, and we're going to try to get some live footage of that. All right, today we're going to pull up. We've got some stories of some sightings. We're just going to read aloud to you and kind of dissect it, when we're done with it. So, stay tuned for hang on for the ride, and let's get started. Okay, this first one is put out by Zay. It's a witness report, and it's titled, I Walk with Telepathic Dogmen. The United States was once all wild territory. Before humans began developing these lands for the purpose of man, a vast areas of wilderness have been destroyed. I believe creatures like dogmen and Sasquatch exist, but I don't think of them as monsters. My biggest concern is not the fact that these creatures exist. My concern is with people disrespecting these beings, creatures that have been here long before we were. The ignorance and arrogance of man has led to so much suffering and injustice, not only for people, but also for the truly indigenous inhabitants of these lands, such as Sasquatch, dogmen, and other wildlife. It would seem that these dogmen, while tending to be displeased and frustrated with humankind, also have an uncanny reserve of respect for people, and is one of the reasons why I trust and admire them so much. It has been said that the dog men have killed dogs and cattle, but rather than being consumed with fear and ignorance, you also need to have a more mature sense of reasoning and understand for why they do the things they do. And to look beyond the value we place ourselves and ways of life to ask ourselves if we have been good stewards of this earth, of which I feel people have not been good stewards. If given a choice between passing through cryptid territory or game territory, I would choose Dogman and Bigfoot over humans any day. I have walked through Dogman territories in Pennsylvania before without fear because I trust them with a kind of trust that I don't often have for humans. There are very few people in this world I would genuinely trust. I know just how arrogant and angry spirited people can be. I know quite a I know quite a bit angry about my own kind and am far more interested in knowing more about cryptids and protecting their habitats from further human development and destruction. As a midlife bachelor, I have been around long enough to know that the true nature of man really is, and I see a lot of things regarding humanity that just turns my stomach. Real love and courage is not always about supporting your own species, sometimes it's about protecting an area of life that few people understand due to their ignorance and arrogant ways. A truly courageous heart is one that stands against their own kind and stands next to those whose world is being destroyed by greed and selfishness. Very few people understand what courage really is. Courage is not about facing a werewolf, because I have visited with a werewolf in a sighting area more than once. Courage is not about traversing through dogman areas with guns and ammunition, because I have visited dogman territories numerous times. Always alone and unarmed. If I'm not worthy to be here, then the dogmen can have me. But I have yet to experience aggression from them and have had several subtle encounters with dogmen. I have recently discovered a three-toe paw print that was almost as big as the palm of my hand and was so fresh that the dogman could have been watching me as I passed by. Most people are trapped inside the bubble of their own existences. I reach out to the life around me. I don't write books, nor am I well known. I'm a bachelor that lives a very quiet and private life, and one of the things I love to do is to get acquainted with the unknown. Anger, fear, arrogance rarely wins any friends that are truly trustworthy. The kind of feelings that you emit from your life force are the same ones that are going to be attracted to you. I have literally had dogmen approach me after dark, announcing their presence with sounds that defy what you would reason as beings from average animal. I have heard mystical heavy breathing sounds to non-aggressive growls of acknowledgement. I have had a black and white telepathic image of a canine head and snout that came into my mind. It's an amazing world. People think that people like us are weird, but then most people never venture very far out into the waters of life. And if they do, they often go about it completely wrong and with wrong intentions. This planet does not belong to humans. There are other life forms here living with us, and we also need to learn to be more respectful to the life around us and learn to share the planet. People are always taught and sharing when they are young, but most people are only taught to share with other people, not wildlife. Sharing with other areas of life is not really about giving gifts of food or other items that have little value. Sharing is also about sharing planet Earth with other areas of life and not being greedy and conceited and hoarding life and this planet of ourselves. When you have a character like I have, you would be amazed just how many enemies you can find within humanity, and also reveals just how corrupt it is as well. Which is why the forests are the friendliest places for me to visit. One of the few places I can go where I actually feel safe, especially in places where there are dogmen and Sasquatch. They don't have much goodwill toward people with angry and disrespectful spirits. Okay, now this gentleman has touched on what I touched on at the beginning of the show. It's respect. Um, Now, this I disagree with this gentleman. This is all of our world, you know, both animals and man. Now, man was created to have dominion over all, but that is far, that's you still don't have to take advantage of that and destroy everything in your path. Now, Brandon, what do you believe out of this story? I mean, what do you get out of it?
Um, Pretty much due to saying like that man does not have power over the whole world, and that animals and men should share the same power, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. You know, when I did my herpetology, um, I was doing educational seminars at, zoos, birthdays, things like that. I talked a lot about deforestation. Now, deforestation affects a lot of animals. If I'll give you an example. If you come in and clear cut, just say 2 acres of land, okay, there are species of animals that go no further than their own little bubble. For instance, a lizard. Lizards don't have a high rate of travel. They stay confined in a small area. You know what I mean? There's a famous saying that no matter where you are in the world, you're never farther from than 2 feet from a spider. Well, that's because that animal's kind of, the spider's the same way. They do not travel far. They're small animals. They stay confined in their little areas. That's what they call home. You know, same with squirrels or deer. Deer have a little bit of a broader spectrum there, but it's still everything, in its own little spot of land in that 2 acres. When you clear cut it, you push it. What doesn't die in the process of the cutting, you push it on to the next acreage, the next 2 acres, and then temporarily it messes the ecosystem in that area up. So, you know, um, it's no, it's not different, nothing different about it when you're talking about Dogman or Bigfoot. You know, you clear cut their woods and you drive them deeper into the forest or whatever, or if they don't drive deep into the forest, now you start to see them in your more, urban type places. You know, you kind of encroached on their land, so now, you know, I guess with them, what was their hunting ground is now might be your backyard, so to speak. So that's why you're getting a lot more sightings in the urban type areas. But yeah, that guy had an interesting outlook. I highly agree with him on a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it. So let's check out this next story. Okay, this next story comes from You Sinister Dwarf. I live in the northwestern side of Michigan, and we have this legend called the Dogman. It's basically like a werewolf type thing. You can read about it in most Google searches. I was 9 years old when this happened. At that point, I still shared a room with my sister, and so my bed was on one wall with a big window on the opposite side. My sister's bed was right underneath that window. We were on the first floor of the house, but we live on a hill, so it's slanted and so it's still a pretty high window, 9 feet off the ground maybe. Anyway, I woke up one Saturday night feeling really thirsty. It was about 2 in the morning and everyone else in my family was asleep. I was about to crawl out of my bed, go to the bathroom just down the hall when I looked at the window and froze. At the very bottom of the window there was a really dark shape. It looked kind of like top part of a Siberian husky's head. It was a big thing with 2 points that looked like ears on the top. I couldn't make out any other features, so while I was still scared at first, I just thought it was a reflection of the pillow at the end of my sister's bed. And then it moved. You know how dogs kind of twitch their ears and perk them up when they're trying to hear better? That's what this shape did. The 2 points that I took for ears twitched and then came back into place. And it wasn't a subtle movement at all. I knew it wasn't just a reflection. The Dogman's story is really big here, and we live right in the woods, so I immediately thought of that. I got really scared then, so I did the typical kid thing and pulled the covers over my head and went back to sleep without getting my water. In the morning, there was nothing outside the window and no marks on the side of the house or anything. No evidence that there had been something there at all. The thing that really stumps me is wondering how anything would manage to stay up by a window that's 9 feet off the ground in the first place. Since I was 9, I do accept that it was possible. I just imagined it. I already knew the Dogman story, so maybe I was just scared to begin with. That fear kind of manifested itself like that. At the same time, I really do believe that there was something outside the window, Dogman or not. Okay, well, kid or not, that's, he living there in Michigan, there are a lot of sightings reported. Um, I think y'all can quote me if I'm wrong, but I think there's like close to 3,000 sightings since what? I mean, I know that. Well, we know that actually the Dogman goes way back. I mean, look at there's a tribe of Indians that are called the Dogmen. Where did they get that idea from? The Egyptians had that. I'm not going to say the name. Y'all probably know it anyway, but they had that dog-headed figure that they drew on the rocks. Um, so I mean, you know, everybody can't be crazy. Look at the stats. What's the stats say about if you invite 100 friends to a party that 10 of them will show up? That's the statistics for it. So, if 3,000 people have claimed they saw the Dogmen since, let's just say the 30s for now, um, you know, then you're gonna have a high number in there of people that more likely actually did see it. You know, you got to weed out the good and the bad, but you know, I I I believe that this kid saw what he saw. What about you, Brent?
Yeah, what's weird is when she went outside, she didn't see any evidence, like any footprints, unless it was like very leafy out there, fall or something.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Like I mentioned earlier, I hear some pretty far-fetched, crazy stories about these things, but I think if they were myself, this is my theory. I think they were created not to be fully discovered. That's what I think. You know, it they're not meant to be discovered. It's 2018. They would have been on in the books by now. They're just not meant to be discovered. I mean, we can still continue our quest, but I mean, I have to say at this point, I mean, it's not gonna. Don't get me wrong, it's not gonna stop us from trying. But at this point, I'll just have to say that it's probably going to be difficult and more than likely impossible. I mean, let's just face the facts. But by no means don't quit, all you Dogmen lovers. Keep up the search because you never know. It's just my theory. What do you think about that?
Um, yeah, if they were meant to be known, like I read the Bible and everything, and at Noah's Ark is named every animal but that one.
Right on, right on. Well, with that being said, just boys, girls, when y'all are out there doing this research, just remember to stay safe, be respectful, don't get each other hurt, if you encounter this thing, remember that it is predatory and more than likely a pack hunter. Remember, I can't express that enough. Should you encounter it, like I said in the last episode, just because you see him and he may have left and got out of your sight does not mean it's over. Stay frosty. Cover those four corners and do your best to try to, without panicking too much or anything. I know it might be easier said than done. You know, um, Try to get you and your friends out of the danger zone. Um, but any Brandon, any last thoughts that you want to share with us?
Um, yeah, make sure you don't go out alone either. Like, at least have four people covering all sides or something.
Yes, amen to that. I'd like to, before we close out here, I'd like to do a little push for. We're also musicians, and we have a channel called Dunham Music. You can check that out. It's DUNNAM Music. That's Delta Uniform November Alpha Mike Dunham. Okay, click on the DM when you pull it up on YouTube. Check out some of our music, and hit that subscribe button there too, and like it, share it. We're trying to get that one up and going as well. Like I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, we've got some interesting things that we're fixing to get involved with, and y'all stay safe out there, and like and subscribe. Catch y'all later.
Bye.